Darian Cole hadn't missed a flight in over 10 years, but today, the universe decided to humble him. He stood at gate B-17, jaw tight, watching the jet bridge door close. His assistant's voice echoed in his head, "You're cutting it close, sir," but he'd brushed it off, thinking the private security escort would be enough to get him through in time. It wasn't. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath, adjusting the cuff of his charcoal suit. A lesser man might have thrown a fit. Darian simply turned on his heel, already pulling out his black leather wallet as he approached the VIP counter. "Put me on the next direct to New York," he said, calmly but firmly. The woman at the desk nodded, tapping quickly. "We can get you on the next flight in 45 minutes, first class." He gave a curt nod. "Book it." The lounge was quiet, sleek, and full of people trying not to look like they were watching him. Darian didn't care. He sipped his espresso, opened his laptop, and tried to focus on the merger presentation he was supposed to deliver tonight. Instead, his mind kept circling back to the fact that he never missed flights. Ever. He hated delays. He hated wasting time. Still, something about this delay felt different. 45 minutes later, he boarded the plane. First class was nearly full, but there was one seat open beside a woman with long black hair tied up in a loose knot and a worn paperback in her hands. She had earbuds in and didn't look up when he sat beside her. Darian glanced at her, then at the book. Jane Austen, not something you saw every day in first class. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and told himself to sleep. But then she laughed, quiet, soft, and totally unfiltered. Just a little chuckle at something she read, but it was real. It wasn't the fake kind of laugh people gave in boardrooms or on red carpets. It made him turn his head. She noticed. "Oh," she said, pulling out one earbud. "Sorry if I disturbed you." He shook his head. "You didn't." His voice was lower than usual, steady but curious. "What are you reading?" "Pride and Prejudice," she replied, holding it up. "I know, predictable." "Not really," he said. "Most people don't read anything anymore." She smiled, and it actually reached her eyes. "Well, I'm not most people." That got his attention. The flight took off. They didn't talk for a while, but her presence was calming. She wasn't fidgeting with her phone or talking loudly. She wasn't wearing anything flashy: sneakers, jeans, and a navy blue hoodie that looked like it had been through at least 20 washes. She was real. He didn't realize he was staring until she turned to him again. "I'm Wren," she said, folding her bookmark into the crease. "Wren Malone." Darian blinked, then extended his hand. "Darian Cole." Her eyes narrowed. "Like the Darian Cole?" He lifted an eyebrow. "That depends." "How do you mean?" "You run Cole and Everett," she said. "You're on the cover of Forbes like every other month." "I think they're exaggerating," he said dryly. "But yeah, that's me." She didn't look impressed. She didn't look intimidated. If anything, she looked amused. "Miss your jet today," he chuckled under his breath. "Missed my commercial flight. Happens to the best of us." "Must be hard," she teased, biting back a grin. He looked at her, really looked at her. She was beautiful, but not in the way models tried to be. Her features were striking but soft. Confident but unguarded. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that was rare. "You live in New York?" he asked. "Brooklyn? You? Upper West?" "Let me guess," she said. "Penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows, espresso machine that costs as much as my car." 2 out of 3, he said. "I hate espresso machines. They never work right," she laughed again. "You're not what I expected." "And what did you expect?" "Someone colder," she shrugged. "Richer than God, CEO, custom suit, probably buys companies because he's bored." He tilted his head. "That's not completely wrong. But you're also kind of normal." He gave her a look. "That's the first time anyone said that to me." They shared a smile that lingered a little too long. Darian looked out the window, his heart doing something unfamiliar in his chest. Something he hadn't felt since college. They talked through the entire flight, about books, cities, their favorite pizza spots. She was smart-like, sharp, smart, and funny in a way that caught him off guard. When the flight began to descend, he realized he didn't want it to end. As they left the plane, he walked beside her. "You need a ride?" he asked, almost casually. Wren gave him a side glance. "You're offering me a ride in your black SUV with tinted windows and a driver," he grinned. "You say that like it's a bad thing." She hesitated. "You're not a serial killer, are you?" "Not even a little." She paused, then nodded. "All right. But only because my rideshare app's been glitching all day." They stepped outside. His driver opened the door without a word. The car was sleek, black, and smelled like leather and cedarwood. Wren climbed in, glancing around. "This is nicer than my apartment." Darian pulled off his jacket and handed her a bottle of water from the built-in fridge. "I'll take that as a compliment," she eyed him. "You always like this with strangers. Only the ones who read Austen on planes and laugh out loud." She gave a soft smile, and for a long moment they just sat in the quiet hum of the city. When they reached her place, she turned to him. "Thanks for the ride, Mr. Cole, Darian," he said. "Darian," she repeated, like she was testing it on her tongue. "I had fun." "Me too," he said. Then, after a beat, "Can I see you again?" Wren looked surprised, but not in a bad way. "You don't have a board meeting or a yacht party or a corporate takeover tomorrow," "Probably all three," he said. "But I'll make time." She hesitated for a second, then smiled. "Okay. I'll let you know when I'm free." And just like that, she was gone, disappearing into a walk-up building with ivy crawling up the side, leaving him sitting in the back of a luxury SUV, wondering what the hell just happened. He missed a flight. And somehow, it felt like the best thing he'd done all year. The next time Darian saw Wren Malone, she was standing outside a tiny art gallery tucked between a bakery and a locksmith shop in the East Village, her hair down this time, falling past her shoulders in soft waves that looked like they'd been tousled by the wind. She wore a long, rust-colored coat, a chipped ceramic coffee cup in one hand, and a sketchbook clutched under her arm like it was armor. "You found it," she said as he approached, her breath curling in the cold October air. "I was told I'd find a woman here who makes time disappear," Darian replied, his hands in his pockets. "Thought I'd see if that was true." She gave him a look that was unreadable for a beat. Then she turned and pushed open the gallery door, letting music and warm light spill out. Inside, the space was small but alive. Abstract canvases leaned against brick walls. A few people milled about with plastic cups of wine, nodding seriously at splashes of oil paint and ink. Darian's eyes adjusted slowly, but Wren moved easily through the room like she belonged to it. "This is yours," he asked, taking in the pieces. "Mine and a few friends," she said. "We rent the space once a month. It's kind of a collective." He turned to her, brows raised. "You're an artist." "I'm a graphic designer by day," she said. "But this," she motioned to the walls, "this keeps me sane." He moved closer to a piece in the corner. It was a mixed media portrait, sharp lines, layered textures, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. "This one's yours," he said. Wren tilted her head. "How'd you guess? It feels like you." He paused. Unapologetic, complicated, honest. She looked at him for a long moment, something shifting behind her gaze. "Most people just say cool use of color. I'm not most people." She didn't respond, but her lips curved slightly as she turned away and offered him wine from a folding table in the back. He declined, but took a bottle of sparkling water instead, twisting the cap as she flicked through her sketchbook nearby. "You ever show your work in bigger galleries?" he asked. Wren shook her head. "Not really looking for that." "Why not?" "Because then it becomes about what sells, not what matters." Darian leaned against the wall, folding his arms. "You don't think you could do both?" She gave a quiet laugh. "That sounds like something a man in a penthouse would say." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe it's something someone who's built a company from nothing understands." She glanced at him. "You built it from nothing," he nodded. "My father left when I was 9. My mother worked 2 jobs. I started the first version of Cole and Everett in my college dorm. It wasn't always boardrooms and stock options." Her expression softened. "I didn't know that. You didn't ask." Their eyes locked, the space between them thick with something that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had just been waiting. "You hungry?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "Now, I know a place near here. Quiet, no reservations. Best handmade pasta in the city." She studied him, then nodded. "I'll grab my coat." The restaurant was dim and cozy, with exposed beams and candlelit tables tucked close together. No one bothered them. Darian seemed to know the owner, who greeted him with a warm handshake and sent out dishes without menus: roasted wild mushrooms, lemony burrata, ribbons of fresh tagliatelle in a sauce that tasted like it had taken hours. Wren wiped her mouth with a linen napkin. Okay, I'll admit it, this place is magic. I only bring people here when I want to impress them, Darian said. She gave him a sideways glance. You bring a lot of people here? No, he said. Just you. That quieted her. Outside, the city buzzed low. They walked slowly, the chill making Wren pull her coat tighter. Darian shrugged off his and draped it over her shoulders without a word. She hesitated. You don't have to, I want to, he said. They stopped at the subway entrance. I can call the car, he offered. She looked up at him. This is fine. Neither moved. I'm glad I missed that flight, he said. Wren's breath caught. Me too. She stepped down into the subway, then paused and turned. You're not what I expected either. Darian watched until she disappeared into the crowd. He didn't move for a long time. Back in his penthouse, the view stretched endlessly over the skyline, but for once he didn't notice it. He loosened his tie, sat on the edge of the leather sofa, and stared at the business proposal glowing on his laptop screen. He couldn't focus. His mind kept drifting to a woman with paint on her fingers and chaos in her laugh. He'd built empires, bought out competitors, signed deals worth hundreds of millions. But none of it had ever made his pulse race the way Wren Malone did when she looked at him, like she saw past the tailored suits and spreadsheets and didn't care, not even a little. Darian adjusted the cuffs of his navy wool coat as he stepped inside the polished lobby of the building on Mercer Street. The glass doors whispered shut behind him, sealing out the November wind. Wren had given him the address the night before, her voice light but unreadable when she said, If you're serious about wanting to see what I actually do, come by around noon. Just don't wear anything that costs more than my rent. He'd laughed then, but now that he stood here surrounded by exposed pipes and mismatched furniture, it was clear she hadn't been joking. A woman with a buzz cut and an oversized flannel shirt glanced up from the desk. You're here for Wren? Yes, he said, offering an easy nod. Darian Cole. She raised one eyebrow and gave him a once-over that was anything but subtle. She's in the conference room, second door on the left. Try not to break anything. The hallway smelled faintly of coffee grounds and printer toner. He passed a kitchenette overflowing with mugs and a bulletin board covered in chaotic sticky notes. It was a far cry from the sleek, minimalist offices he was used to, but it was alive. When he pushed open the door, Wren was hunched over a table, surrounded by printouts, sketches, and a half-eaten bagel. Her hair was piled messily on top of her head, a pencil tucked behind one ear. You weren't kidding about the dress code, he said. She looked up, a grin breaking over her face. You wore boots, I'm impressed. I took your advice, he replied, stepping inside. I even left the Rolex at home. She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. I didn't think you'd actually show. Why's that? Because this place doesn't exactly scream power or profit margins. I didn't come here to be impressed by your office, he said. I came to see you. Her eyes flicked to his, and for a moment the room quieted around them. All right, she said, standing and gesturing to the chaos around her. Welcome to the thrilling world of brand overhauls and client panic. This week, it's a small nonprofit trying to rebrand without losing their soul. He stepped closer, scanning the mood board. You did all this with a team, she said. But yeah, I lead the concept work. He pointed to a rough sketch of a logo in the corner. That one's good, it feels grounded. She gave him a sideways glance. You know design, I know instinct, that's what you're selling here. Wren nodded slowly. That's what I'm trying to protect. There was a beat of silence. Then she added, You didn't have to come here, Darian. He met her gaze. I wanted to, she hesitated. Most people don't want the unvarnished version of me. I don't like varnish, he said. It hides the grain. Wren stared at him for a second, then looked away, suddenly flustered. You're not making this easy. I'm not trying to. Later, they walked through Soho, the sun low and golden between the buildings. She led him to a pop-up bookstore set up in a cobblestone alleyway. Crates of dog-eared paperbacks lined the tables, and string lights hung from fire escapes above. I come here when I'm stuck, she said, running her fingers along a battered spine. There's something about looking at things people poured their hearts into. Reminds me what matters, he watched her quietly. What do you do when nothing helps? I go home, she said. Put on an old movie, make toast, cry sometimes. He didn't laugh. That's honest, you asked. I appreciate honesty, he said. I don't get a lot of it. Wren turned to him. "What do you do when things fall apart?" "I fix them," he said. "Even if it kills me," she studied him. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," he admitted, "but I don't know how to stop." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she reached into the crate and pulled out a worn copy of a poetry collection. She handed it to him. "You should read this," she said. "It's about letting go of things even when they matter." He turned it over in his hands. "You do that often." "Not often enough," she murmured. They left the alleyway and walked until the sun dipped behind the rooftops. At the corner of her block, she stopped. "I need to go up," she said. "Got a deadline," he nodded. "I'll see you soon," she hesitated. "Maybe. If I don't get swallowed up by client meetings and existential dread, I'll take that as a yes." She smiled faintly and turned away. The next morning, Darian sat in a boardroom overlooking the East River, surrounded by analysts and executives throwing around words like expansion strategy and vertical integration. He should have been fully engaged. Instead, he found himself staring out the window, the poetry book she gave him tucked into the inside pocket of his coat. That evening, he made a decision. He didn't call her. He showed up. Wren answered the door in sweatpants and a paint-streaked t-shirt, one eyebrow raised. "You like tempting fate, don't you?" "I brought dinner," he said, holding up a brown paper bag. She stepped aside. "If that's from that Thai place on Fifth, you're allowed in." "It is." They sat on the floor of her living room, eating out of cartons and listening to vinyl. Her apartment was small but full of color plants in mismatched pots, canvases against every wall, a string of photos clipped to fairy lights that ran above the couch. He picked up one of the photographs. It showed her at a lake, laughing with someone who looked like her. "My sister," she said, her voice soft. "Older or younger?" "Older. She lives in Seattle. We don't talk much anymore." He didn't ask why. He just nodded. When the food was gone and the music had faded to a low hum, she turned to him. "Why are you really here, Darian?" He looked at her, serious now. "Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm performing." She blinked. "And that's rare. It's never happened before." She didn't speak for a long time, then she reached out and touched his hand. "Okay," she said. "Let's see where this goes." He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Outside, the city pulsed. But in that room, for the first time in a long time, Darian Cole wasn't thinking about stock prices or quarterly goals. He was thinking about a woman who didn't need him to be anything but real. Darian stood in front of the mirror in his penthouse, adjusting the collar of his black tailored coat. He looked polished, calm, but under the surface, his pulse had a rhythm all its own. The gala tonight was one of the biggest events on the New York social calendar. He'd attended for the past 7 years as a speaker, a sponsor, a name on the donor wall, but never as a man about to walk in with someone who made him forget the weight of every deal he'd ever signed. He checked his watch, not for time, just for something to do with his hands. When the elevator opened directly into his foyer, Wren stepped out. She wore a midnight blue dress with a high neckline and a slit that hinted more than it revealed. Her hair was swept up at the nape, exposing the delicate lines of her neck. No glitter, no diamonds, just a single silver bracelet and a look in her eyes that made him forget the air in his lungs. Darian didn't speak for a moment. Wren raised an eyebrow. "Too much?" "No," he said. "Not even close." "Good, I almost wore sneakers." He gave a quiet laugh, then offered his arm. "Shall we?" The car ride was silent at first, not tense, just charged. As the city lights slid past the windows, she finally spoke. "So what's the story tonight?" "Am I your date, your +1, or your accidental PR nightmare?" "You're Wren," he said. "That's the only thing I'm interested in explaining." She looked at him, her mouth curving just slightly. "Then you might want to warn your shareholders. They'll survive." The gala was held inside a converted museum ballroom with marble columns and a ceiling that glimmered like starlight. Waiters drifted through the crowd with trays of champagne. A string quartet played something elegant in the background. As they entered, a ripple of attention followed them. Darian had always drawn stares, but tonight there was something different in the way people looked. Curiosity. Surprise. Wren leaned in. "You sure you don't want me to pretend to be your assistant? If anyone asks, tell them you're the reason I showed up at all." They made their way through the room, stopping only when they were intercepted by one of Darian's board members, a man with silver hair and a sharp suit who raised his eyebrows when he saw Wren. "You're not usually one for surprises," he said to Darian. "This one's mine to keep," Darian replied. When the man turned away, Wren whispered, "That was the corporate equivalent of marking your territory." He looked at her. "I meant every word." Later, as people mingled and speeches began, Darian stepped away to take a call. Wren wandered toward the back, drawn to a large canvas on display, a photo exhibit showing candid moments of children in underserved schools. One of the images stopped her, a boy sitting on a crumbling stoop, reading a book too big for his hands. "Reminds me of someone," a voice said behind her. She turned to find a woman in her 40s with angular features and a tailored jumpsuit. "I'm Celia Everett," she said, offering her hand. "You must be the woman who's made Darian impossible to reach this week." Wren shook her hand. "He mentioned you. You're his partner at the firm." "Technically," Celia said, "but we both know he runs the empire. I just make sure he doesn't burn it down." Wren smiled faintly. "He hasn't mentioned burning anything down lately." Celia studied her. "He's different around you, which is either a very good thing or a very dangerous one." Before Wren could reply, Darian returned, slipping easily beside her. "Everything all right?" he asked. Celia gave him a look. "She's better than all right. Don't mess it up." Then she disappeared into the crowd. Wren turned to Darian. "She's very subtle. She's also never liked anyone I've dated. So I'm already winning. You've been winning since the moment I missed that flight." They slipped outside before the final speech, escaping into the cool night air. The street was quiet, the city humming low in the distance. Darian leaned against the railing of the terrace, his hands clasped loosely in front of him. "I have to tell you something," he said. Wren's smile faded. "That sounds ominous." "It's not," he said quickly. I need you to know where I stand." She waited. "I've spent my whole life building things," he said. "Companies, reputations, walls. And for the first time, I don't want to build anything between us. I want to take it apart. Every layer. Every defense." Wren looked at him, quiet for a long moment. "I'm not impressed by declarations, Darian. I know. I'm not looking for someone to save me." "I wouldn't dare." She stepped closer. "Then what are you offering?" "Everything," he said. "Not because I think you need it, but because I want to give it." She really watched him, then reached up and touched his face. "You waited until I was completely off balance, didn't you?" "I didn't plan this. I just fell." Wren leaned in and for the first time kissed him slow, sure, and without hesitation. It wasn't a question, it was an answer. Later, back at his penthouse, the skyline stretched endlessly outside the windows. Wren stood barefoot by the glass, holding a cup of tea, her reflection soft against the night. "You still think missing that flight was the worst part of your day?" she asked. "No," he said, coming up behind her. "It was the best mistake I've ever made." She turned to him. "So what now?" "Now," Darian said, taking her hand, "we stop pretending this is temporary. And when the world starts asking questions, let them. I've already got the only answer I care about." She smiled, reached up, and turned off the light. In the quiet, everything made sense. For the first time in his life, Darian Cole didn't feel like he was chasing something just out of reach. He'd already found it, and he wasn't letting go. Rain tapped gently against the windows of the upstate estate, a soft rhythm that filled the silence between them as Wren stood barefoot in the kitchen, pouring 2 mugs of coffee. The scent of cinnamon and espresso curled into the air, mixing with the faint crackle of the fireplace in the next room. Darian leaned against the doorway, sleeves rolled to his forearms, eyes settled on her in a way that no longer felt new but still felt extraordinary. "You didn't tell me this place existed," Wren said, handing him a mug. "I didn't think it mattered until now." He took a sip. "It's not a house I bought to impress anyone. I come here when I need quiet." "You brought me to your quiet," she said softly. "You are my quiet," he said without blinking. She looked down, the heat of the coffee bleeding through the porcelain. "It's beautiful. The lake, the trees, the way it smells like cedar and old books. I always meant to fix it up," he said, "but somehow I like that it's unfinished, like you." His lips twitched. "Maybe." They spent the weekend there, away from the world, no phones, no meetings. Wren painted on the porch while Darian read beside her, sometimes interrupting her brushstrokes just to pull her into his lap. On the second night, she fell asleep on the couch with her head on his chest, a fire burning low and the rain still steady outside. On Monday morning, he drove her into the city. She leaned her head against the window. "You're not going to disappear into board meetings now, are you?" He shifted gears smoothly. "No, but I might ask you to come to one." She turned her head. "Excuse me," he glanced at her, eyes steady. "I want to bring you in on a project, a real one. Not a favor, not a gesture, I want your name on it." "What kind of project?" "We're launching a foundation," he said. "Education access, resources, art programs. I want the branding to reflect the people it's for, not the people funding it." Her brow furrowed. "Why me?" "Because I trust you not to water it down, and because I trust you, period." She stared at him. "You're serious?" "I'm not in the habit of offering positions over coffee and rain," he said, "but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't personal. I want you involved, fully." She nodded slowly. "All right, but I'm not going to smile through bad decisions. I don't want you to. I want you to challenge me. Be careful what you wish for." When they arrived back at her building, he walked her to the door. She paused at the threshold. "You're not going to get tired of this?" she asked. "Of you? Of someone who doesn't need anything from you?" He stepped closer. "I've had plenty of people who needed something from me. What I've never had is someone who simply sees me." Her voice dropped. "And you see me. I can't look away." She pulled him down by the collar and kissed him. No rush, no uncertainty. Just the quiet certainty of something that had settled into place. That night, Wren sat at her drafting table, the proposal from Cole and Everett open beside her. The foundation's name was simple, the Horizon Project. She began sketching, clean lines, a rising shape. Something that felt like possibility. 3 months later, the launch gala for the foundation lit up the rooftop of a historic building in Tribeca. Wren stood by the railing, watching the city below, dressed in an emerald gown that caught the light when she moved. Her name was printed in the evening's program, listed beside Darian's. He approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "You should know, the mayor just complimented the logo. I'm still recovering from the fact that you let me veto your color palette. I'm learning to let go of control." She raised an eyebrow. "You letting go," he stepped closer. "Only with you." They clinked glasses. Music swelled behind them, and the terrace filled with laughter and conversation from donors, artists, and educators. Celia passed by, giving Wren a nod of approval that said more than any words. As the evening wore down, Darian took her hand. "Dance with me," he said. "There's no music. Does it matter?" Beneath the city stars, they danced slowly, no choreography, no pressure, just movement, just breathe, just them. Afterward, he didn't take her back to her apartment. He took her home, his home, now theirs. The penthouse had changed, more art. A dog-eared book left on the kitchen counter. A small easel by the window where the morning light hit just right. He placed a velvet box on the table without saying anything. Wren stared at it. "What is that?" "A promise," he said. She opened it. Inside was not a ring, but a single antique key. "I bought the gallery space," he said quietly. "The one where we met. It's yours now, permanently, no rent, no conditions." Her hand trembled as she picked it up. "And the ring?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He stepped forward and pulled one from his pocket. Simple, timeless, platinum. An emerald in the center. "I didn't want to give it to you until I gave you something that kept you grounded. You always said you wouldn't lose yourself for anyone. I want to prove you never have to." Tears shimmered in her eyes, but none fell. "I love you," he said. "Not the idea of you. Not the version that makes sense on paper. You, the chaos, the standards, the honesty, I love all of it. Will you marry me?" She didn't hesitate. Yes, the ceremony was small, a vineyard in late spring, wildflowers, no press. Just the people who mattered and a sky so clear, it looked like it had been painted just for them. Wren wore white with her hair down, paint still under her nails. Darian wore his watch backwards out of habit and forgot his vows halfway through because he was too busy watching her. They lived between the city and the quiet house by the lake. Mornings were slow. Arguments were real. Their work grew but never came between them. She kept her name. He kept her art on every wall, and when they fought, they never walked away. Because they'd both spent too many years building walls. And now, finally, they had someone to walk through them with.